meeting, and we're on item number 9, Kaka Tangiata Urban Growth Area, update and next steps. The recommendation, which I'm happy to move and seconded by Councillor Dennison, is that the Deputy Chief Executive prepare a district plan change to zone the Kaka Tangiata residential growth area identified in map 9.2 of the Palms North City District Plan to future urban zone option 4. Are there any comments? Yes, we've moved and seconded, myself and Councillor Dennison. Thank you, Councillor Harbiter.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I'm very happy to support this recommendation. This has been in the works since 2010, and I think this will, as the officer said, get things going, and it's what we want to see happen for this area. It's an area that we've been waiting to see happen, so I'm very, very keen to see that happen with this work going forward. So very happy to support it, and very happy to see this come forward. So yes, very happy for option 4 and very happy to support it. Thank you.
Tēnā koe. Thank you very much. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And look, I agree with Councillor Harpiter. It is nice to finally see some movement on this, but I don't think my disappointment can be left unsaid as to where we are today in this process. So far, we've spent $1.8 million on this project, and I went back to the report in May 2023, shortly after I'd been elected to council, and officers said an additional spend will be required to progress this plan change, but a draft plan is unlikely to be completed until mid to late 2024, with hearings in mid-2025. To have had no report or update in 2 years on the understanding that we would be going into hearings shortly for a full new city suburb plan change, to be told the best we can do as a future urban zone where developers will then have to lead private plan changes to get this across the line, it is a significant downgrade to what had been initially proposed, and I am disappointed in that. There is no other project in council more important than this to me. This is the one thing, the most important thing we could do to support growth in our city, to support housing affordability and rent affordability in this city, to make us a desirable regional city for people to move to, and we are being beat to the punch by Fielding, with thousands of sections that are being developed out there because we cannot get a plan change across the line. And I am disappointed that that is the case. The importance of this cannot be understated. Prior to being elected, I remember thinking the best thing we could do is develop a new suburb, and pleasantly surprised when I got there that that was what we were doing. And so the fact that we're now scaling down that vision so much, after so much time, energy, effort and money has been spent, it is a shame. I appreciate the reasons that officers have given, I appreciate it's complex, I appreciate all those things, but it's not often you'll find me in this chamber supporting spending hundreds of thousands of dollars more on something, and the primary time I can think of doing that was putting forward the extra $340,000 because I believed our team when they said that is the money they needed to get this to a hearing. And so that's hard. That's really hard to stomach. I accept that a future urban zone is an okay intermediate solution. I accept that there's changes coming to the Resource Management Act and all of those things. I accept the scale increased, I accept all of those parts of it. But for me, I would much rather we said, right, we've looked at the 700 hectares, we can't do it, let's go for 100 hectares, zone it, do the future urban zone for the rest of it, but actually get something on the table so we can get development happening. Putting it back on developers to say, oh, well, you lead the private plan changes, my understanding was that was what officers were trying to avoid in the first place by going through a plan change. And I'm not at all suggesting I want us to go down anywhere near as restrictive path as we have with Plan Change G. I think the fact that we're still fighting Environment Court perhaps shows we have been more restrictive than we would need to be in a future plan change. But yeah, I guess I'm really just saying I'll accept a future urban zone as a very, very poor second alternative in lieu of not being able to get a full plan change across the line, but it is a shame.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just good to be able to re-enter on this item after a pause of some time, but did enjoy the opportunity to get to grips with the report and hear the officers' responses to a number of questions this morning. I very much don't subscribe to the growth kind of mantra. If growth was the answer, then obviously Auckland would be the solution. It's, as you can see, growth brings huge challenges, so I'm not easily persuaded around Mass Greenfield, even in the best of times, and to go back on where we were, which was option 1 in a solid council-led process, to option 4 is further than I'm willing to go. Fundamentally, it does take investment up front to get the high quality outcomes that you need, and to at least minimize, if not totally avoid, the significant gaps that we have seen come to us in places like Kauai and Summerhill. So appreciate that there's many other levers that ultimately affect those outcomes over the long term, but I'd prefer to see council in the strongest possible position, and for me that would be remaining with option 1. So I won't be able to support this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today seems to have been the day for revisiting issues that were raised in the 2012 election. And I seem to remember this, at that time, being a conversation between reprioritising Whakarongo versus Kakatangiata or City West as it was then. So reflecting on that makes you realise that we have done substantial development since this was first on the table as City West. We have all of the development that went in at Whakarongo. We've had the substantial development that's gone in at Akotare. There's been huge amounts of growth and development in the city over the last decade. And so I don't love that this is going to take longer, going to have a little bit more uncertainty, but I also didn't love the option of spending more money on it either. So I feel like this is an opportunity to try a different approach. It's been an approach that has been available to us for a wee while. We've not picked it up until now. Now is the chance to do it. This is a complex opportunity. If opportunity is even the right word for it. It's not that Fielding beat us to the punch, it's that we're trying to rebuild Fielding down the road. You know, a subdivision the size of an actual town. That is no small attempt for a council of our size, and it's sensible for us to look at the options to deliver that in a manageable and sustainable way without some of the consequences of the kind of prescriptive plan approaches that we've been in before. So I think it might not be everybody's ideal solution, but it is a good solution, and also has some comedy potential for what the zone is called.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I will be supporting this recommendation. I think, you know, some things, as we've seen, are a little bit longer and windier than we initially expect. But, you know, there are a lot of things that change over time. And the long-term plan really did show the burden of cost of growth that has been falling on our ratepayers. And, I mean, that has been a real concern. And so I congratulate the officers for finding perhaps a slightly different pathway forward, while maximising the outcomes for our city but minimising the cost to our ratepayers. And so for that reason, I'm very comfortable to progress a slightly different path forward. And we have heard that this also may be perhaps less familiar for landowners and developers, but perhaps more straightforward process in the long term. So I look forward to seeing us progress this piece of work, and yeah, I support it today.
Thank you. There being no further comments, I'd now like to invite a vote. Thank you. On that, the Deputy Chief, I read that, didn't I? Kapai, we're ready to vote. And that is passed 10 votes for and 2 against. Thank you. Now we'll go to item number 11, public participation and engagement, the annual progress report and proposed indicators. And I'd like to invite Olivia Wicks, our Manager of Communications, to present this. Thank you, Olivia. Yeah. 10 to 10 4.
Good afternoon. I will try and keep it brief, but I did just want to touch on a few quick points before I take some of your questions. Just a reminder, this report and why I'm here today comes as a result of one of the resolutions from our long-term plan. Keen to get it to you today so we can start tracking those indicators from the 1st of July. In terms of this report, from what I can tell, it seems like it might be the first of its kind in New Zealand. So while we do often report on, say, consultations or what we do on specific projects, it's clearly quite unusual for it to be reported on in one cohesive document, which is pretty exciting. I did also just want to say quickly that obviously from having a quick look at it, it does involve a wide range of work. So those day-to-day relationships, day-to-day public interactions, and a lot of the work in there is actually legally required work that falls under a range of different legislative requirements, especially the Local Government Act, which you'll all be familiar with. We are required to make sure people have information that might be of interest to them in any format that suits them, and that they have the ability to also give their views in any way that suits them. There have been, this report sums up a large number of teams' involvement in public participation, and they have been involved in obviously supplying some of the content, but also have been involved in looking at what some of those indicators are. We will be putting this report on our website so that it is publicly available and people can have a read of it, and it's been written in a way that we can easily update it every year with very little time and no cost. In terms of the council report, I have briefly touched on there that we have proposed a definition just because every interaction we have every day could be deemed to be civics. So just obviously needing something to report on, as well as some of the reasons why we know people do and don't engage. All of the indicators that are in there are data we already collect or can easily collect with little time and no cost. And again, I just wanted to touch on the fact that indicators, like in other areas as well, may go up or down in a year, and that might not be reflective of whether the community is more engaged. But that's why it'll be important that we have some narrative around those as well. And I guess just lastly, I just wanted to say that obviously with this having been a recommendation, I've tried my best to guess what you might wouldn't like. So I hope we've got halfway there, but keen to hear your feedback. Questions, and I think my kind of thoughts pulling it all together was that this is a really nice example to show how committed as an organisation, as you guys, as our staff, that we are committed to in terms of getting our public involved in what we do. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Olivia. Councillor Bowen, thank you.
Thank you. It's a really quick one. I've lost it in the report, but at some point in that you said we're doing all of this with no additional budget. Does that include the e-newsletter?
So the e-newsletter we're looking at, we think we can probably do it within existing budget. But I guess just a bit of an update on that, we are hoping to have something in place by the time the new council's sitting. There's just a lot of things that we need to suss out before rolling that out.
And that will be an opt-in proposal.
Unfortunately, we can't just sign people up automatically. It does have to be an opt-in process.
Yeah, I think that wouldn't be the look you're going for in civics education, just to force people to do it. Okay, no, thanks for that.
Councillor Zabellin, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you so much for this report.
I had a question on page 81. It talks about there are additional engagement methods that we could explore, like citizens panels and juries, participatory budgeting and things like that. And it talks about we'd need significant staff time or funding. I just wondered which team would lead this kind of work. Is this more of a governance exercise or a governance democracy team thing, or a comms team, or like a combo of both? Where would that sort of fit in the structure?
Not too sure. If it's something that you're interested in us coming back to you with some ideas of what those things could be, we could look and give you some examples and some potential indicators of what costs could be like, and we can also make sure that we have that kind of conversation about who we could see being involved in that process.
Do we know, are there any of our neighbours or peers about the same size kind of council as us that are doing similar things?
Yep, so
Precedent.
Horowhenua has a citizens panel, so that is not representative of the community. That's something that meets on major projects. Their elected members lead that with the staff obviously pulling all of the stuff together. Whanganui's just started one that is, they are paying people to be involved, so they got everyone to feed in, and then they've selected so they get good representation. I think from memory they're paying about $500 a person per session to come along, and they are closed doors meetings, so that those people obviously can be involved with some anonymity, but that's relatively new, and they are planning on releasing how that goes in the coming wee while.
Cool, thank you. And then you talked a bit about developing a narrative measure for elected member engagement and fostering civic partnership and connection. And I wondered, does anyone else do that? Do we have an idea of how that might look, or is this something that we would just develop, being the first ones to do something like that?
Yes, as far as I'm aware, we'd be the first, yeah.
So we would have a blank slate in
Yes,
terms
and
of
I guess
developing what that would look like.
That's one of, I think, showing what you all do has been one of the hardest parts of pulling this together without creating a lot of work for you to fill in forms every week about where you're going and who you're talking to. And so how we come up with a way to showcase that work will be important, but also I don't want it to be too time intensive for you and give you another job to do as well.
Thank you, thanks so much.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett. Oops, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Liv. Really appreciate this report. I was just interested, a lot of what's captured in the report is kind of levels of activity, how many people are clicking here or are involved. But yet in the report, it kind of talks about what drives people's engagement is them feeling like their participation matters. And I'm kind of curious about that matters bit and how we can actually reflect not only the volume of participation, but actually the impact. Have you kind of, what would you say in terms of opportunities to highlight the impact side of things a bit more?
I think that's one of those ongoing things that our team discusses is when we make decisions based on having the public ask for something or feed in, how do we keep using those examples more publicly? I guess one of the things that I think is a real tricky one is people, as you all know, like to say you didn't listen, but by listening to some people, you might not be listening to others, and it's a real tricky one, as you all well know. But I think kind of that's one of those areas that we're keen to focus on more, is how do we, I guess, show how those, how their participation has impacted. I think things like the newsletter and stuff like that will be quite helpful to explain some more of that scene setting type work.
Cool, thank you. So this report's going to come back in another 3 years or something, or what's the
Your
return?
resolution asked for it to be an annual report.
Oh, lucky
if you'd
us.
like.
Or
To
lucky
be
them,
less.
whoever the next council is. So would it be reasonable that in a year's time to expect that there might be some kind of stronger impact examples coming into this report?
Yeah, I think we can keep an eye out for how we can do that better. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Olivia, I notice on page 6, and I really like how you've got down there how you can have your say and stay connected with council. And the one thing that stood out as an anomaly to me was become a member of an advisory or reference committee group to contribute regularly. It's almost like, to me it read like, oh, you can get on one of those groups, but in fact it's not necessarily feasible for that, but they could consider putting themselves forward for one of those groups, couldn't they?
Yes, maybe we need to change how we phrase that, and that's a good point, yeah.
Thank you. And the other thing, it's not a biggie, but I see it as an opportunity possibly. On the first page, you say officers recommend that in the future, these annual reports will cover the 12-month period from the 1st of July to the 30th of June and will be presented to Council each year in September, which we heard just not long ago. This aligns with the annual reporting timeframes. I wondered if we shouldn't be bold enough to do it with the Māori New Year and go possibly from the 1st of June to the 31st of July, you know, the next year, just as a way of honouring mātauranga Māori and fitting that in there. Just a thought for people, you know, I sort of looked at that and thought, that could be a cool opportunity. But in fact, it's probably something for the CE and the senior leadership team to consider, because it would be a movement for all of those timeframes, just out by a month. But I just pose that and leave it there for consideration. But thank you very much, Olivia, and I think that's the end of the questions. Ngā mihi ki a koe. So we've got the recommendation that Council endorse the proposed indicators for future annual reports. I'm happy to move that. Councillor Wood is happy to second that. Any comment? Right, we're ready to vote. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Barrett. Sorry. And
Well, thank you. Just briefly, because I think it does deserve comment. This is a really valuable report in my view, actually synthesizing and pulling together a huge amount of activity, and that's on top of the actual project delivery and service delivery and admin that happens in this organization. I found it massively impressive to actually read through, and I think it will be very helpful to inform the community in terms of what sort of interactions and opportunities there are. I do hope that when this comes back in 12 months' time that we see a bit more on the impact side of the reporting as well. I think it's one thing to report on activity, another thing to report on impact. Thank you.
thank you very much, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Michelad.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to thank also staff for the report, because we've been waiting for this for quite a while as well. So it's good to see some of the engagement as well that's currently happening, and also some of the indicators that have been suggested to us as well by staff as well. And just like Councillor Barrett, I think my concern was not around the engagement side of things necessarily, but also around the impact that those engagement are actually having on the community as when it comes to civics engagement or participation. And I'm quite, happy with what's going on. I mean, what's been reported to us. But I'd love to see in the next report, like Councillor Barrett said, around the impact, and the effectiveness of these engagement that we're having in the community, and how that's going about changing people's perception around the work that councils do, and councillors also do, and whether people actually also understand the differences between the role that central government plays and the role that as local government does, because not many people in our community actually understand those kind of roles as well, because I get people come to me around with immigration issues and I have to refer them to the local MP on many occasions, that sort of thing. So love the content of the report, but I think and I thank the staff for the work that they've done on this, because it's very informative. But the future report, I'm looking forward to future reports as well around the impact and effectiveness of all these engagement that we're having in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Michelad, and I think just in support of what the both of you have said, yourself and Councillor Barrett, the fact that it is an amazing document, and the fact that we're the first council in the country to do it, well done. Ngā mihi to our staff. Now, if there's no further comment, I'd like to invite a vote. Thank you. Past 12 all. Thank you very, oh gee, it sounds like I'm umpiring a game, isn't it? A unanimous vote. Thank you. Now we move on to item number 12, and that is the Palmerston North Quarterly Economic Update for June 2005, and the memorandum will be presented by Stacey Andrews, our city economist. Thank you so much, Stacey. Welcome.
Kia ora tātou, Stacey Andrews, City Economist. I've prepared a few slides just to take you through the main points. As I think a few people have mentioned today, there's a lot going on at the moment and the economic world is no different, so quite a bit to get through.
Thank you.
So the city economy in 2025, our 5-year growth does continue to exceed national growth. So we're sitting at 8.5 versus 8.4 for New Zealand. So the New Zealand economy, some parts of it are catching up. We were well ahead of the New Zealand economy at times in the last 5 years because of our economic structure that is levelling out now. More recent growth indicators do reflect the challenges, especially in terms of spending and the jobs market. That's where we're seeing the impacts in particular. And economic impacts have been uneven. So the rural economy is doing extremely well at the moment and really leading the recovery for New Zealand. Our industry is exposed to those weak economic conditions such as consumer demand are really taking the brunt, and that does continue. These sectors should get a bit of a boost later on in the year as interest rates continue to flow through to households and inflation remains stable across the economy. The global situation is really causing quite a bit of havoc for our economy as well as everybody else's. So I think really the fundamentals of the New Zealand economy are quite solid, and sort of tongue-in-cheek would say if they could just settle down, the rest of the world actually, so we could get on with our recovery, because really the New Zealand economy is quite strong in many ways. Diverse mix of public and private sector activity here in our region really does support economic activity, and I think we will see that benefit increase over the next few years as we look at investment that's flowing into our region with the Ring Road and defence sector investment across here in Palmerston North and the wider region. So this is our GDP growth, and as you can see at times during that 5-year period, it was very strong relative to the New Zealand economy, and that's due to our economic structure, in particular our large sectors that are less exposed to those factors such as people not being able to go out and spend money. So it's our public sector in particular that did particularly well over that period of time, and also our rural economy that really boosted activity here relative to much of New Zealand, especially parts of New Zealand that were struggling with border closures and a loss of international tourism, etc. However, this is where we are right now, and this is really the human side of the economic cycle, where we are seeing job losses and we are seeing business closures. We are starting to see a little bit of a lift in some of the early indicators, such as job ads for our region have actually increased. We're sort of at the rough end of the cycle now. We are starting to lift out of it, but things are tough for many, as you can see from this data. The spending trends in the city really reflect these challenges. I think the one area that we're seeing things be quite positive is in our commercial vehicle registrations. And this is really being driven by an increase in investment from our rural sector in particular. So that's where the strength is coming from. Across all other indicators, we are seeing quite a decline, apart from international tourism, which is still in recovery mode from when the borders were closed. So we're seeing a little bit of a lift there. But yes, this very much shows the impacts on our community and our business community is reflected in these indicators for spending. Labour market definitely is at the rough end as well. We know we've got an extra almost 22,000 people nationally on the job seeker benefit this year. That's taken the national count to almost 210,000. In our region, it's we've gone up by 450, so that's quite a strong increase over the year. As I tell my daughter, there's not a lot of, she's just graduated university, there's actually not a lot of work out there at the moment. It's a period of time that we're in, things will improve, but at the moment there's a lot of young people in these situations. Again, from this we expect to see a bit of a lift to tertiary education enrolments, so there is the other side of the coin where we will see some improvement in educational levels that weren't there during the pandemic period. So kids leaving school were going into jobs without getting tertiary skills because the jobs were available and the labour was required. So there are trade-offs to the situation. But again, we do expect things to improve over the next 12 months or so with an extra, I think it's 29,000, I might be wrong, but a lot more jobs generated across the New Zealand economy over that time. So these are the job seeker trends, and as we can see, that increases across all age groups at the moment. For New Zealand, for us, up 14.9% versus 11.6% for New Zealand. Work really is being affected as well as health conditions, and as we saw over the pandemic period as well, we're seeing quite a substantial increase in people on job seeker benefits due to psychological and psychiatric conditions. So those stress events that have been impacting on our community continue and are reflected in these figures. So one of the great things, I guess, is that our housing market has stabilised. I think if you remember back in 2021, late 2021 into 2022, our house prices started to plummet quite strongly based on those increased interest rates and also more stringent borrowing conditions for buyers in particular. So we saw those house prices coming down quite strongly. They really have stabilised, and on the upside at far more affordable levels than what we previously experienced. Rental prices are also quite affordable across our region, which is very important. We're seeing new dwelling consents stay up around the 432, but we're also seeing an increase in relocatable dwellings consented in the city, which is taking that net figure down. We are beneath the 10-year projections of 328, but then a year or so ago, 2 years ago, we were well above them. So it's very cyclic. We will monitor that over time, but we expect that to even out over time based on economic cycles. So looking forward, as I said, the domestic economy really showed some early signs of recovery earlier in the year. The GDP data for March, however, was prior to things like Liberation Day on the 2nd of April, and that has caused some impacts for our economy. Our manufacturing index and services index did take a hit from that and has come down over the latest readings, and that will be captured in the next quarter's data. We really do see that unemployment business values show signs of nearing their peak. So we think that they're pretty much near their peak, and those effects will start to subside now with additional employment across the economy. The lower interest rates and the booming export sector are really supporting economic activity. There's a lot of arguments going on at the moment between economists at what the Reserve Bank should do. I'm probably on the Kiwi Bank side, where actually economic activity has slowed again based on those international factors, and it needs more stimulus to support their recovery going forward. I think they often say you get 10 economists in a room, you get 20 different opinions on the same question. So it's a bit like that with the commentary at the moment. So yes, lots of opinions. And the changing international order continues to cause chaos, and always for New Zealand, as a small open economy, the dismantling of the international rules-based order is not a great thing for us. I think our government is doing very well with building international relationships, so that is supportive of activity going forward, and opportunities will emerge from that. Again, lower interest rates critical to boosting domestic economic activity and also relieving pressure on households and businesses, which is important. Got a lot of good stuff going on in our region, and I get asked quite often if I'm optimistic about our region, and I actually really am. We've got our regional economic structure here is extremely supportive of the resilience of the economy, and we're actually getting more resilient over time because of government direction and investment. So that's a brief summary. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Stacey, and it's not a question, but I just want to say thank you for a comprehensive update. And contrary to what you might think, because when you came in and sat down, you said, I'll try and be quick. But in fact, all of the councillors really appreciate seeing that information and the way in which you present it as well. So ngā mihi ki a koe. We're now open for questions. Sorry. Oh, thank you, Fire. We have, I'm happy to move that, and Councillor Hapeta has indicated that she will move that as well. Any questions? No questions? Any comments? Thank you, Councillor Hapeta.
Just very quickly, just wanted to say, Stacey, thank you very much for all the work that you've done this year, and this report is really, really good, so thank you very much for bringing us up to date with everything, and it's great to hear that the Manawatu is doing so well versus what is happening in the rest of the country, so thank you very much for keeping us updated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kia ora everyone. Well, as per what's written recommendations above, 1A and 1B, I'd like us to vote on that. Thank you. And that is passed 11 unanimously, 11 votes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Stacey. And now we come to the last part of the day, the last business, and that is the council work schedule, item number 14. And do I have any, I'm happy to move it, seconded by Councillor Hapita. Any questions? Yes, by Karen, Councillor Naylor, thank you.
Thanks. Item 19, the Summer Hayes reports, partnership models, expressions of interest, etc. I think I asked at the last council meeting, given that there's unlikely to be a report back in this term of council, asked if there was any way that we could have an update, and I think the Chief Executive said that would happen. I wasn't sure if that was just via an email or a report, but could we have an update of when we might get an update on that, just given the length of time we've been waiting for that work to happen?
Thank you. Over to the Deputy CE for a response. Thank you.
To Madam Chair, okay, I'll take that action and we'll come back to you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Any comments? Can I please invite a vote on this matter? Thank you. And that is passed 10 unanimously, 10 votes for. Well, everyone, we've come to the end of today's session. It's been a busy one, but I also know that we're about to go into a month's break. Some of you will be travelling, and I wish you well, and we'll look forward to seeing you on your return. And for those who are remaining behind, I know some of you are doing some tasks on behalf of council. That work still continues. I'd like to thank the CE, the Deputy CE, and all our officers and staff. We're very, very grateful for everything that you do, not only for us as the elected members, but for the city. And thank you, Hannah and Sarah, who have been working to my right, and to everyone. So I look forward to seeing you in August when we're all around the council table again. Nō reira tēnā koutou, and I'd like to call on you, Councillor Fitzgerald, e te tūngani hei whakakapi tō tātou hui, if you could finish our hui with a karakia. Thank you.
Whakatā, e noho haumaru ki a koutou katoa me karakia tātou. Ka puta ki te whaiao, ki te ao marama, whakamaua ki a tīna.
Tīna.
Haumi e hui e.
Tai ki e.
Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora pā, tēnā tātou.